Who is Jesus? Some people says that Jesus is a good man, a good prophet, a good teacher. But the Bible teaches that Jesus is more than prophet, more than teacher, that he is actually God incarnate, God with us. Unlike the question, does God exist, the question of whether Jesus Christ existed is asked by relatively few people. Most accept that Jesus was truly a man who lived in Israel 2,000 years ago. The debate begins with the discussion of Jesus' full identity. Almost every major religion teaches that Jesus was a prophet or a good teacher or a godly man. But the Bible tells us that Jesus was infinitely more than a prophet, a good teacher, or a godly man. The deity of Christ is the most critical and crucial and neglected aspect of our theology. And we neglected a number of reasons. The list of each is: people love Jesus as long as we're not too clear about who he is. What it means that Jesus is a son of God. So, who did Jesus claim to be? Who does the Bible say he is? First, he is God in the flesh. Jesus said in John 10 verse 30, "I and the Father are one." At first glance, this might not seem to be a claim to be God. However, look at the Jews' reaction to his statement. They tried to stone him for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God, John 10 verse 33. The Jews understood Jesus' statement as a claim to be God. In the following verses, Jesus never corrects the Jews or attempts to clarify his statement. He never says, "I did not claim to be God." When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," John 10 verse 30, he truly was claiming equality with God. In John 8 verse 58, Jesus claims pre-existence, an attribute of God. "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered, "before Abraham was born, I am." In response to this statement, the Jews again took up stones to stone Jesus, John 8 verse 59. In claiming pre-existence, Jesus applied a name for God to himself, "I am." When we read Exodus 3 verse 14, the Jews rejected Jesus' identity as God incarnate, but they understood exactly what he was saying. Other biblical clues that Jesus is God in the flesh include John 1 verse 1, which says, "The Word was God," coupled with John 1 verse 14, which says, "The Word became flesh." Thomas the disciple declared to Jesus, "My Lord and my God," John 20 verse 28. Jesus does not correct him. The Apostle Paul describes Jesus as our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, Titus 2 verse 13. The Apostle Peter says the same, calling Jesus our God and Savior, 2 Peter 1 verse 1. God the Father bears witness of Jesus' identity as well, but about the Son he says, "Your throne, O God, will last forever and ever, and righteousness will be the scepter of your kingdom." Hebrews 1 verse 8, and Psalm 45 verse 6. Old Testament prophecies such as Isaiah 9 verse 6 announce the deity of Christ, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Why is the question of Jesus' identity so important? Why does it matter whether Jesus is God? There are several reasons. First reason is, if Jesus is not God, then Jesus is the worst of liars and untrustworthy in every way. Second reason is, if Jesus is not God, then the apostles would likewise have been liars. Thirdly, Jesus had to be God because the Messiah was promised to be the Holy One. Psalm 16 verse 5. Since no one on earth is righteous before God. Psalm 53 verse 1. God Himself had to enter the world as a human. Fourthly, if Jesus is not God, His death would have been insufficient to pay the penalty for the sins of the whole world. 1 John 2 verse 2. Only God Himself could provide an infinite, eternally valuable sacrifice. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 21. Fifthly, God is the only Savior. Hosea 13 verse 4. If Jesus is to be the Savior, then He must be God. Jesus had to be both God and man. As God, Jesus could satisfy God's wrath. As a man, Jesus had the capability of dying. As the God-man, Jesus is the perfect mediator between heaven and earth. 1 Timothy 2 verse 5. Salvation is available only through faith in Jesus Christ. As He proclaimed, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 14 verse 6. Who is Jesus? Well, the answer is Jesus is God. He is equal to God. As Jesus is a good man, good teacher, good prophet is not enough if He is not God. Because there is no salvation in good man, good teacher, and good prophet. So Jesus is worthy of our worship. Because He is God.